you visit us. And Brad, we welcome you as well. And you know that you can reach out to any of us if you have additional questions for the article that you're writing for us about us. I'm excited about what's going to come of that. John's mentioned how our district has been doing a fundraiser for the month of February called Share the Love. It is all done now, and over $150,000 was raised. So those of you that did participate, thank you so much for that. Lindy, I don't know where we're at with the Butterfly Service Project. John threw this slide in here. I know that, we talked about maybe joining other clubs or other groups that are working on this. Lindy, if you can unmute yourself, is this something you're going to lead? You want to know if people are interested in helping? Where are we at with that?
Nothing's happened so far. I could take a lead on it after tax day.
Okay.
If there are people who are interested, by all means, shoot me an email or put something in the chat, please. Thank you.
That would be great. Thanks, Lindy. And Elka, you got to tell us about our next book club. We had Elka's kind of in charge of, the smart stuff. And I totally love this idea she has come up with. So Elka, can you tell us about it?
Sure. So I recently had the pleasure of attending a webinar where the speaker was Richard Blanco, who's a Cuban-American poet. He was Barack Obama's inaugural poet in 2013. And I listened to a few of his poems and as well as the speech he gave. And a lot of his work talks about themes of belonging and identity and participation in creating identity, but also an invitation to participate in the community and what does it mean to be part of a nation. And I felt like this would be a good continuation of our previous discussion about third culture kids. He himself is a third culture kid. And so I thought that also connected to my time living abroad and spending time in different types of communities. For example, as an exchange student, I quickly felt at home in Austria with my host families, but yet with a German name, Elke Schmidt, I started dressing more European with some dark wash jeans instead of my whitewash bootleg jeans. I learned the local language, but yet there were still times where I wasn't necessarily comfortable, nor was I welcome in participating in conversations at all times. There were times where they were discussing politics, for example, where I, as an American, could contribute ideas, but I wasn't being asked to shape the political discussion about what was right for Salzburg. And at times I felt excluded. I was like, why is that? But other times I understood. And so I think all of us can connect with those questions at different times in our lives. So I'll work with John on sending out an email with a few resources to review for the discussion. I believe it's April 7th, if that's correct. And we have 3 poems, which are read aloud by Richard Blanco. And then there's also a Radiolab podcast, and that's about an hour. The poems are between 5 and 20 minutes each. And the podcast is actually one of my favorites. It's called For Whom the Cowbells Toll. And it explores the path of one woman and her quest for Swiss citizenship, while also on a quest to challenge a lot of the cultural markers of Swiss identity. For example, she was against church bells and cowbells. And what would Switzerland be without those? Is something we probably all asked. So just wanted to give you a preview of that. And please look for an email in your inbox with some question prompts. And then as always, if there's questions that these themes bring up for you, I would love to hear them. And then we can have a great discussion. And yeah, Lindy, she has been featured and she went viral for this. So anyways, excited to talk about that next month.
Thanks, Elka, so much for putting that together for us. We do have a goal of 25 members in this club by the end of 2021. We are probably the least expensive Rotary Club you could ever join at $270 a year. If you are interested in joining, get in touch with me. And also for active Rotarians, if they would like to become a friend of this club, there is a mechanism for them to do that. It is $100. We have received a number of gifts this way, and it's just been so very sweet. We really appreciate that support. Next week's speaker is Paula Schwartz. A lot of us on this screen know Paula. She is now the president of a brand new e-club called Global Horizons Rotary Club, and she's going to talk to us next week. They are just getting chartered. They're not chartered yet, and many of the people in this club are from the North Star Rotary Youth Exchange program as well, volunteers with Youth Exchange. And this is a group that wants to do a lot of traveling and mission work. So I think we're going to have a really fun time kind of comparing notes and getting to know what it is, in fact, they want to do and hope to do. And it's very possible we might be able to collaborate on some projects as well as a sister e-club. So without further ado, Jasmine, I'm thrilled that you're here with us. I am really excited to know what you are doing with your life in New York. So I would like to give you the stage.
Thank you so much, Chris-Ann. And it's so cool to hear about this Rotary Club, and I didn't know e-clubs were a thing, and this is awesome. This is great. I would come to a lot of these, but I'll talk more about this later, but I teach chess to kids is my main source of income, and like the after school hours are really normally really booked for me, so it's hard for me to come to these weekly, but I'm so pleased to hear about it. Okay, great. I guess I will just jump into it. So like Chris-Ann said, my name is Jasmine Dorothy Haefner. I'm an actress and creator living in New York City. I've lived here for almost 6 years now. At the end of May, it will be 6 years officially. I moved here after I graduated from Stony Brook University, which is on Long Island, out further east. We got it, Greg. And I got my 4-year bachelor's degree in theater arts with a minor in journalism from Stony Brook before I moved over to Queens. I'm from, of course, Minnesota originally. And I went on exchange 2009 to 2010 to Denmark. And I was asked to speak about this briefly, so I will speak about this briefly, and because I've been thinking about my exchange year versus other people's exchange years who are here and who I know about, and they varied widely in Denmark as well, from place to place. I was in a town, a city really, named Odense or Odense, and it was on the middle island of Fyn, and between the island has Copenhagen and the main peninsula. And it was a really good year in all of the growth that occurred in my life. I definitely went through some difficulties with host families, and I struggle with, let me rephrase, I don't struggle with, I'm currently living with Crohn's disease and have since I was an early teenager, I think since I've been 11. So it was very interesting going to the hospital in Denmark and going to the hospital in the Czech Republic and like see what is the global healthcare system and what does that mean. So the one thing I will say about my exchange in Denmark, in that it is was a bit unusual. Denmark is I don't know if it's still this way, but Denmark has a ton of exchange students for their landmass. And they had whole country get-togethers because the country, you know, is really small, which was amazing. It was like 150, 200 exchange students all gathering in the same place for a weekend. And they had intro weekends and weekends throughout the year and those kind of things. And in the town that I lived in, I think there was 12 exchange students. And I spent a lot of my year with other exchange students that I'm still friends with and have deep support with. I am in, for better or for worse, I'm in stronger contact with former exchange students than I am with my own host families. But that's, I guess, just how it goes sometimes. My experience over the year is one that still shapes me to this day, and I just still sort of flabbergasted that I got to do it. Okay. So that's me on exchange and how I got to New York. And now I will speak a little bit about acting and how to thrive while doing it. It is not easy being an artist in a country which doesn't support their arts as fully as other countries are. I recently met an actor named Ola, who lives in Germany, and when I met him over Zoom, he said, oh, I was a professional actor for 12 years. And I didn't realize what he meant by that is that he was a resident actor at a theater company because in Germany, every single town, large town, has their own government-sponsored theater company, and you can be employed as a full-time actor. This is not the reality that most actors and artists live with in the United States. So that being said, out of all the people who, since moving to New York City, the ones who are still here, right, who are still in the industry, who are still working artists, are the ones who figured out how to have stability within their living situation and within their financial situation. And those, hands down, were always the largest indicators for me of like who stayed and who decided to move to a different field. Of course, I have no judgment towards moving out of the arts as your primary career focus. But before I go into like how to survive, I'll talk a little bit about the craft because it's why I do it. So acting is, some people think that acting means you're very good at pretending, and you're very good at lying. I've worked with bosses before who have become more suspicious of me after I told them that I was an actress. It was a true story. But that's actually the opposite of the truth. If you actually sit down and think about the actors whom you love, what I always quickly realize is the reason I love them is not because they're lying to me or they're hiding anything. It's actually because they're telling us the truth, and they're showing us their truths through the story which they're telling. When we speak about story, I cannot express more fervently how story shapes all of our lives and has since humans have been humans. We tell ourselves stories constantly. And up until the Gutenberg press was invented, right, most of our history was translated orally from person to person. And stories are critical, right? They're critical to our survival, to who we think we are, to where we think we're going, to why we think that's important, to what our parents think about us, to how we relate to other people. These are all stories that we tell ourselves. How based in truth they are, right, of course, is always up for debate. And I'll just share briefly, the movie I'm watching today, I kind of like start it in the morning and then like watch a little on my break and then watch a little at the end of the day, is called The Magic of Belle Isle, and it stars Morgan Freeman and a couple of other actresses. And in the film, Morgan Freeman plays a writer, and he goes over to dinner at this new neighbor's house, and she has a couple of young daughters, and one of them has discovered the story that he wrote, this novel. And she asks, well, why was he a lone ranger? Why did he go by himself on horseback? It was a Western. And he starts to tell the character history of the main character of the story. And it starts to get graphic and dark, right? And is going to scare the young girl. So the mom interrupts and she says, remember, girls, it's just a story, right? And Morgan Freeman's character turns to her and goes, what do you mean? And she's like, I'm just trying to tell them that it's not real. And he goes, well, it was real to the main character, right? And I think this is very true for us as ourselves, and who we are. And our ability to imagine a future, right? Like the ability to build yourself into the future requires imagination. And I'm sure everyone here can reflect on, right, when you heard a story as a child and what it made you want to do. I remember watching movies and then going and playing basketball for 3 hours, right? I remember dancing around my living room like a ballet dancer after I watched a film. And I have many friends. I have this fun thing that I do with people sometimes where I walk up to them, or a good friend of mine, I say, well, why did you decide you wanted to become a doctor? Or why did you decide that you wanted to do this? And inevitably, I kid you not, I have not exception. Every single time I've asked someone this candidly, they've told me a couple of things, and they all also told me about a movie they watched. And I really think that that's important, and that's true. So a little bit about the craft of acting and storytelling, right, and why it's so important to us. And what I'll segue here to is inspiration. So as actors, you're existing in a capacity where you're constantly asking other people to hire you to be in things that they have funded themselves, that they have written, that they're directing. And when we talk about the totem pole of being on a film and TV set, what we're really talking about is actors being like right here, like right above the set production assistant. They're very low on the totem pole. And it's a difficult position to be in as an artist, as a performer, because you're in a constant state of want, right? Of wanting to be hired. So what I would say to anyone who's interested in going into acting especially is to not let it be the only creative outlet that you have. It's important for artists to practice the art of expression, and we're not living in a place where we're going to be having jobs every day. So how do you manifest that expression constantly for yourself is a good question. I write now. I started writing about a year and a half ago, now maybe a little bit more. And I've had one short play produced. That was 2 Decembers ago. And I also had a short film. It's about 17 minutes, so it's not so short, called Zoomers, that I wrote and acted in and executive produced, that was filmed over the summer. I'd be happy to send links to my work to you guys. And then most recently, over this past weekend, I just filmed a short film called 28 is Great to celebrate my 28th birthday that happened 2 Fridays ago. So I've been writing and of course, on Monday evening, I had what's called a table read, which is when you sit down and you read a script out loud for the very first time for my first feature-length screenplay, named Smartsville as a working title. So writing has become a way for me to keep creating worlds. And that's what actors really do. They create worlds for themselves and for other people to see. Because if you're not seeing it, you better bet the audience is not going to see it. So yes, I'd be happy to send links to my work, Lindy. Great. So as we continue forward, we've talked about imagination, inspiration. Now, how does one become an actor? A lot of people start at the opposite end of where I think they should start. They say, I need a headshot, and I need a manager, and I need an agent, and I need a job, and all of these things, right? But obviously the antithesis is true. Acting is an art form and a craft. And sometimes I think that acting is a lot like, I've said this before today, regardless of the toilet that broke this morning that you heard me speaking about earlier. Acting is kind of like being a plumber. You have like ways of accessing character and ways of figuring things out, and there's a magic in that, but you're still an independent contractor who's being paid to provide a service. And how do you get your training to the level where you could have someone call you for an audition in 2 hours and feel like you could walk in and nail it, right? And even more than that, how can you get yourself to a point where you could lead a movie? We're talking about performers whose bodies are their instruments. So if anyone here is interested in acting or talking to other people about acting, the thing that I really encourage is training, and training with people who you like. And my biggest barometer for when I see a new acting teacher is when I watch the students in the class work. If I like their work, if I'm intrigued by it, right? If I find it interesting, if it draws me in, if people in the class are doing things that I want to be doing, that's a great place to train. What I also will say about that, because I could talk about just finding acting teachers and training, and I love my teachers more than probably any other category of people in my life besides my family and friends. Lineage. So when you meet an acting teacher, the question is, what is your lineage? People, you would like to think that the old world of like, you're the apprentice who's trained by the master doesn't really exist anymore. But for acting teachers and artists, this is still very real, right? People can talk about my acting teacher, Susan Aston, was trained by Lee Strasberg, who's the creator of something called The Method. Right? And Lee was trained by, and you start to see these trees of people. One of my other Giles Foreman was trained by Reuven Adiv, who also trained with Lee Strasberg, right? So like people really connect to each other, and it's important to know where your teachers are coming from and what they're teaching you and how they, being specific about how they do it. I've trained with people, especially at the early part of my career when I was in university, where it was like, I felt like I was walking through like a misty, like cave of magic, and like, how do we find and how do we play this thing and blah, blah, blah. And it's really not that hard. As crazy as it sounds, it's not that hard. The more specific it becomes, the easier the work is. Like if you think about playing a violin, right? They're not going to be like, just find the right note. They're going to be like, no, 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 put your finger there, right? Okay, so that's training. And then practice. Actors, as people who most frequently, when you're doing what I think is the most fun about acting, which is interacting with other people, and you're in a position of not being an actor on a who's a series regular on a TV show, right? How do you actually keep your chops from sagging? It has to do with being willing to take classes in movement and voice and acting and treat them as 3 individual things you can work on and then incorporate into your daily life. If you were, I'll keep going back to this analogy of the violinist, if you wanted to be the first chair in the Philharmonic, the New York Philharmonic, you would practice 6 hours a day. It's always baffled me why I and other actors, right, really struggle to meet that practice quotient. One thing I'll mention here that's a little, like, I guess offbeat, but I think is really interesting, is that people frequently talk to me and they say like, well, I've had strangers who I've just met say to me, well, if you weren't so beautiful, would you have become an actress? It's a very, very nice compliment. I don't mind it so much, but it irks me because it has nothing to do with physical beauty. And the actors that we love on screen are beautiful for a different reason than like pure bone structure aesthetics, right? When I've now that I've lived in the industry for 6 years, I can say I've literally seen it. I've seen people who start training and they look like, this sounds elitist, but like Joe Schmo off the street, right? And as they keep training their body and their voice, and they tune their ability to express themselves, they start to look what people consider to be more beautiful. And it's just through the training of the physical instrument. You can imagine, like, you wouldn't go to a dancer who's trained for 6 years and say like, you look out of shape, you know, because they're just working that aspect of themselves. The only reason I'm saying this is because people place such a beauty as such a high indicator of whether or not you'll be a successful actor, and I really just don't think that it's true at all. Yeah, I always say beauty is boring, right? I just find it mostly I find it boring. Okay, so that's a little bit about the craft of the acting. I'm going to switch to stuff about like career and career progress next. Does anyone have any questions before I do that? It's okay if you don't. We can always question at the end. Once, going twice. No? Okay, great. So career progress. And I've broken this down into a couple of different pieces here. We just talked about acting. The industry is a whole different thing, right? It's a whole different beast of like functions and job positions and how they interweave and what in like a non-linear industry. And when I talk about knowledge, it's like, if someone in this room says, I'm 18 and I want to be an actor, I would say, you need to watch TV shows, you need to watch movies, you need to go see plays. Before quarantine, I would go see at least a play a week, right? To start to develop like an encyclopedia of things within yourselves, right? There's a famous acting teacher in New York City named Larry Moss, and he says that you should read a play a day. So you just start to build your industry knowledge. And through that, and through very honest self-reflection, you think, what can I play, right? Who are these people? I don't have anyone on my team at the get saying, she's going to be Cleopatra, like, make her Medusa. This is your next Lady Macbeth, right? I need to be very honest with myself and say, if I just stood in front of a mirror, what character do I see? What show could I be on? What universe could I exist in? And through that honest knowledge, you can start to find other A-list or B-list actors who are your same type. And then you can start to work on some of the things they've done before. You can start to track the casting directors that have cast for films they've done before, right? Because if I'm an indie filmmaker and I think to myself, I have a very low budget, but I need like to find the best resources. Well, this movie is kind of close to mine, so who cast for that one? Let me go to that same person. So people have these wheelhouses, right? And once you find where you fit in, you can start becoming more specific about, I'm going to go do a workshop with this casting director because I think they actually have opportunities that I could do. Or maybe I don't need to be contacting casting directors right now. I need to be contacting casting associates or casting assistants, right? And what level should I really be targeting for where I am in my career? Just going to check my time quickly. Okay, cool. What we're looking for as an actor, right? And I think this stands true for most of the arts, is really you want slow and steady growth. I think this is true probably through most fields. As an actor, you are, for better or for worse, an independent contractor who runs your own small business, you being the sole employee, right? So you really want to like build foundationally step by step. If we were to talk about TV just briefly, so there are series regulars. Those are the people who are on the show all the time, right? If we're talking about Friends, Joey, Chandler, Ross, Phoebe, whoever I'm forgetting, right? They're all series regulars. When you go down a step, you have guest stars. If you're familiar with Friends, right? Like Janice on Friends, who plays names are disappearing from me now, right? Monica and Ross's parents are guest stars. And then you have what's called co-stars. And a co-star is supposed to be under 5 lines. They have, of course, widened this gap of what a co-star could be in recent history. Thank you, Janice, yes. They've widened the gap of what a co-star can be in recent history. And now I even went on a co-star audition before quarantine that was like 3 pages. It's a guest star. But it's fine. The only reason I'm saying this is because you want to get a co-star, you want to get a second co-star, you want to get a third, then you want to see, can I move up to guest star? And then once you start guest starring, you think, okay, I've done my type, I played this character, I've done the nurse, I've done the school teacher 3 times. Can I pivot? Right? Can I do something that I want to direct myself towards? Can I use my network connections to help me flexibly navigate closer to the things I would really love to do? Yes. And you do that through your network of people you've established from previous jobs you've booked, classes you've taken, productions you've been in, like classmates in your class, people you've met on the street, at workshops, literally anything. Some of my students, their parents work in the industry to a certain extent, and they're part of my network, even if I don't directly tap into it on a consistent basis. Okay, so that's a bit about career progress. Does anyone have any questions? Burning questions? No. Okay, great. Now we'll talk about, because I want to keep it short and sweet here for you guys. I'll talk about money and stability. Artists struggle. I watch artists really struggle to figure out how to make money. And I can say humbly, something in me was good. I was always a saver instead of a spender. I was always a work hard, work too much to make money, to not spend on anything kind of person for whatever reason. So I had that going for me. But what I will say, I'll reiterate what I said at the top in case anyone wasn't here for that, which is that the artists who are able to remain artists and continue expanding the switch, the time switch. So if like 90% of my year is spent being someone's executive assistant and 10% is my artistic career, next year, I want that to be 85-15, right? And then next year, I want that to be 75-25. And it's through that like small transition where you say, my income last year was 100% from my executive assistant position, 0% from acting. Let me see how I can slowly turn that up. So you can switch your where you are able to become self-sufficient from artistic career. And what I will say flat out is that for many artists, that never happens. Being self-sufficient on just your artistic career in the capacity for which you wish it to be never happens to a lot of people. And that's fine too. And it's especially great if you love the other job that you have. That being said, if you want to be a professional actor and then also teach acting and then also do acting coaching and then also do script consulting, right? Like you can do that, but you're not still making 100% of your income from acting. It's like secondary aspects of it. I'll talk a little bit about my job and how I got there. So I currently teach chess to children ages 3 and up through storytelling. I work for a company called Chess at 3 that actually just won their boxed chess game they created based off of the stories and the Bible that is at the company and everything like that. Storytime Chess just won Toy of the Year, which is the most lauded toy award in the world, which is like crazy. And I've worked there for just over 3 years now. Before I was a chess teacher, I taught theater after school to middle school students in Brooklyn. I was a security guard at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I was a Airbnb manager for an underground Airbnb ring at a real estate company. I did TaskRabbit, which is like an app where anyone can hire to do whatever you say you can do on the app, right? That's not my first time fixing a toilet, let me tell you. I also ran my own moving company out of my car at one point. I mean, like I did it. And jobs just kind of fell at me. Like the real estate company job, someone called me because they saw my TaskRabbit profile and said, you have the skills we need, come in for an interview. But my demand on these jobs, I also, was an executive assistant at a hedge fund, which stopped when quarantine happened because the office closed. My mandate for every single one of these jobs that I took was flexibility. And for the jobs that I only had for a very short period of time, it was because they weren't flexible. That not only didn't work for me as a person with my health concerns and my ability to function in life, but also with having an artistic career. I live in an industry where I have my life structured so that if Paul Thomas Anderson said, hey, Jasmine, I'm the cinematographer on this movie. So cool. How are you? Ha ha. Yeah, I remember that day over in Miami. It was nice to meet you there too. By the way, the director just fired this actress. She's just leading in the film. No big deal. Can you come tomorrow? And I'd be like, I'm minutes from LaGuardia and I'm there, right? One email to my company and I'm like, I'm going on. I have a work emergency, and they'll make it work. And all my families know that I am an actress and a storyteller, and that's part of my career. One thing I'll say here is that I really encourage artists to be forthcoming about the fact that they're artists. This is a difficult thing for a lot of artists to do, because from the second that you say you're an actor, especially, people associate actors with liars. They associate actors with people who have loose morals. And I'm not saying this in jest, I don't find it funny. And they associate actors with people who are flaky. It is difficult to walk into a hedge fund and say, yes, I'm an actor. And that's what I do, because people don't really take you seriously. They'll take me seriously when I'm a series regular, but until then, right, it's what it is. Those people are not your people, and they're not the people you want to work with. They're not going to give you the flexibility that you need to grow in your career. And what you really want, like some of the relationships I have with the parents of the children I teach, is one where when I book a job and I say, I just got a call, I've got to be on set tomorrow, they go, oh my God, that's amazing, because they're invested in me succeeding as an actress. And they know that one of the reasons I'm good at my job with kids is because I'm professional in that way. A professional actress. So be honest about like who you are. Plus, you never know who people know. They're not like us. These connections, they come out of the last place you'd expect them to. Great. As an independent contractor for Chess at 3, I am what's called a teaching artist. This phrase Give it to all of your friends who are artists. Teaching artist is what you search on Indeed.com when you're trying to find a job like I'm describing. When I was a teaching artist for the very first time, down in Coney Island, was teaching theater to after school students, the pay was like $35 an hour. And hyper flexible was only 3 days a week, right? And that was just enough for me to live off of. And these jobs are set up this way. So teaching artist is kind of the key word there. I've already talked about like transitioning time spent to your artistic career. So I'll give this resource as one of the last things that I say before we have some questions. And then I have to go teach a chess student right at the half hour who's over in Japan. It's a long story. She's great. There is a book called Making Your Life as an Artist. Making Your Life as an Artist. You can Google and you can download it for free online. There's also a free workbook that goes with it. But many of the things I've said here today are things that I first gleaned from that book. It's written by a dancer in Philadelphia who realized that so many artists were living in scarcity, right? This idea that like we need to be struggling artists to create good art. The antithesis is true. I tell you, my acting is a lot better when I've slept 8 hours than when I've stayed up all night thinking about how I'm going to pay my rent. So yeah, Making Your Life as an Artist is a great resource. Okay, I'll close it down there and leave some space for questions for you guys. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.
Let's unmute. That was amazing.
Yay!
Love it. Thank you.
Okay, I know there are questions, so either raise your hand, speak up. Karen?
Lauren.
Oh, Jasmine, what a wonderful presentation. And we just wish you all good things.
See?
All good things.
You're my people. Exactly. To my point.
So talk to us a little bit about, I mean, you talk about the flexibility and the pivoting and I guess I had never thought about the way you have to market yourself. But talk to us about COVID and how that has affected you and those you love in your profession.
Absolutely. And I don't mean to minimize the effect that COVID has had on the acting profession and the professions that relate to it directly. It has been devastating for many people. What I've also seen, and what is true for me, I booked more acting jobs last year than I've booked any other year of my life. Sounds crazy, but it's true. I've done full off book, so memorized and fully embodied directed performances of full-length plays on Zoom. The short film I made over the summer was done over Zoom. And as things started to open back up, I shot on set in the middle of November, and then at the beginning of December, I filmed on set. And for many artists I've spoken to, the ones who have made it through and are still pursuing careers as artists, because there are many who are not anymore, they've experienced the year as one of great growth, of internal, a year of introspection, of being able to rest a bit more, and to look into oneself and say, what do I really want to create, and what do I love about the field that I'm in? So it's been polarizing this past year for sure, but people have made it through and things are coming back. Yeah.
Lindy, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. So, Jasmine, again, thank you so much for your speech. I loved all the different elements that you have provided today. And one thing I want to ask is how I can be a resource, because I've put together content, and just yesterday morning I spoke to somebody in Portland, so I feel like I'm getting perspective from both sides of our great nation. But she said that people really are asking their why, and some people have been driven away from the creative space because of the pandemic. And so my question to her and to you is, are there local organizations that are a good resource for actors and actresses or artisans where I can help them figuring out cash flow or money or just whatever?
Yeah,
or what are the things that are top of mind that you really think you need help with too?
Actors really need help with health insurance and affording it. I can't express this fully enough. My roommate, I didn't get to say this earlier, but Junia is from Brazil originally, has been here for 6 years. Not that we've known each other for all that time, but we were just talking about this the other day, the baffling idea that like you have to pay for your own healthcare. And it is a real struggle because people are working as independent contractors. And as you pursue this growth chain, right? For 2 years, after I turned 26 and went off my parents' health insurance, I made just enough. I could write off just enough to come under the line to get Medicaid, right? Or Medicare. I get them mixed up a lot. And now, as I grow myself and I grow my teaching business and my acting career, I'm going to make more money, but I'm still going to do it as an independent contractor. And the amount of savings I have docked up just for that I don't even do anything with, because I think, well, if I need to afford a $500 premium a month next year, then I'm just going to keep all this saved and not touch it. So that's a big thing. There is an organization that you should know about called the Actors Fund. They actually are the ones who helped me get health insurance the very first time I needed it. They're an amazing resource for many different things, and I recommend utilizing them. Andy, if you need, it's a great organization for you to look up as well. Also, I do my taxes every year on TurboTax, and I'm like just not sure if I'm like getting the best deal. You feel me, Lindy? Like I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know if I'm getting robbed or if I'm like actually succeeding in my effort to keep myself wealthy. Yes, so those are like my main things, is like taxes, consistent income, the 3 S's, right? Like with younger actors, younger artists, typically you're talking about the basics. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for presenting today.
Yeah, and I'll put my email address in the chat. If anyone else has a question, please feel free. And Chris-Anne, if anyone asks for my email address, please feel free to give it out.
I will, absolutely. We probably have time for one more question. Does
Yeah.
someone else have something? There must be.
I have some fast fire questions because I know you have to get out of here.
Okay.
Quick question about Denmark. I know this. You went to Denmark, right?
I did.
My friend went to Denmark about the same time. Did you eat a lot of fish? Did you hate it? Was fish involved?
There was a lot of fish. Yeah, the lutefisk.
The
too.
fisk.
Ooh, I have blocked it from my memory.
I'm sorry.
I haven't thought about that in years. Yeah, there was fish for sure.
A lot of fish. Okay. I ask a lot of my friends kind of, who would you like to see actress kind of make their full movie debut? Like I think Ann Dowd should have something big. Like I want to see her in like a big movie or like recurring. Who would you want to see?
Michaela Cole.
Okay.
Michaela Cole, who wrote Chewing Gum Diaries,
Yes.
on Netflix. She's of the actor creators. So I consider myself an actor creator. You're talking about Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Ricky Gervais, Mindy Kaling, Phoebe Waller-Briggs, right? Like all these people are actors who wrote their own thing and then like started to build off of that trajectory. Yes. So Michaela Cole, she's just amazing. She's so honest and she's so present and grounded. And also I watched Friendsgiving, which is on Netflix, and it's not a very good movie, but it's got some really good talent in it. And Chelsea Peretti, who was also on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Oh, I love television. I just love television. It's my favorite of all the categories. She was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and Chelsea Peretti is just so funny. She's so funny. I can't get over it. But those are the first ones that come to mind that like haven't really like hit it big yet, I guess.
Okay, been a Chelsea Peretti pod fan since forever. So
yeah,
love to hear that.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for presenting. Thanks, Chris-Anne, for having me.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm really glad you joined us. And Jasmine, you probably have to run.
I guess I do. Yes. Of course, I'll sign off and they'll be 5 minutes late. Right. But
Yeah, right. Well,
that's how it
okay.
goes.
We want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
today.
so much, Jasmine.
yeah, any day, any week I have
Thank you.
section free, I'll come, but I'm just teaching always. But thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It's I don't know if there's a group of people I'd more like to share this with than fellow Rotary Youth Exchange people. So
Yep. Thank you, Jasmine.
all right, thank you. Bye for now.
Goodbye.